Oh, absolutely not. All humanists are not created equal. There's so many different personalities in there, and there's very quiet and thoughtful and insightful people. There's very outgoing and opinionated and all different ages, all different experiences, all different life experiences. People who have never known religion at all, were never even brought up with any idea of religion. People who were brought up in very religious households and have moved on from there. It was very different. Everybody was very different.
There are some announcements, and then there's usually a couple of topics to be discussed, and normally somebody, either it could be, the president or the vice president or one of the board members or a guest speaker presenting the topic, and then there's open discussion with the members after the presentation. So it's, it's a little bit of a lecture, but then there's give and take afterwards in Q&A. So it's a much more sharing of information.
I wanted to finally be surrounded by people instead of just the words and the essays. I wanted to meet some people who actually thought this way, who looked at the world this way, who understood these essays and didn't look at me like I was crazy. No, it's not a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a way of viewing life.
No, it's nothing like a sermon at all. Nothing at all like that. And also because many different things are discussed. Sometimes the topic is related to science. Sometimes it's related to philosophy. Sometimes it's related to the world around us, nature and the environment. It can be on any of those things.
People tend to come to humanism because they've come to the values and principles the same way I have. I didn't discover humanism and say, gee, this is a good idea, I'm going to adopt it. I've worked my whole life to get to the point of what I believe in, and then I discovered humanism and said, wow, there's a whole bunch of people who did the same work and found the same things I did. How about that?
How did I find them to be? I found them to be very welcoming the moment I walked into the meeting. Well, they're all different. At that first meeting, there was a book discussion going on, and I hadn't read the book, but it was interesting anyway, and so it was just conversation, really. It was just a conversation about the ideas, and I just found the room to be filled with people that were just so knowledgeable and talking about history and facts and science and their experience. And
I needed a place where I would find people with a similar philosophy, who lived their lives rationally, where people could discuss things and where I could be accepted and not branded as a freak because I didn't have the same beliefs as 90% of the people that I knew. People who tend to be religious tend to be narrowly focused in that when they have a moral question, and rather than thinking out the possibilities of an answer, always refer back to it's God's will or God wants, rather than what is good for the individual, what is good for the family, what is good for the society, or what's good for the planet.
No checklist you fill in to become a member. There's no catechism that there are answers to. There's no doctrines, no indoctrination process that you have to go through.
The way things are set up there is to listen and take in and get new information. And if you don't feel like participating in the discussion during the meeting, there's plenty of time afterwards, because people usually go to lunch afterwards and have a social hour. And that's a wonderful time to, in a more relaxed atmosphere, over food, to get to know people, share your ideas with them, and have one-on-one conversations as opposed to the conversation in the room with the group.
What attracted me to the Red Bank Humanists was I used to like these television shows like The Advocates, where you'd have Mario Cuomo and Henry Kissinger and these learned minds sitting in a circle of chairs or behind desks and having a very intelligent conversation about important events, much more so than you can get by reading a newspaper. And they don't invite me to their meetings. But the Red Bank Humanists do the same thing. They sit in a circular fashion of chairs. They have some very learned people belong to it that make intelligent conversation, and they do invite me to join it. And it's informative, and that makes it entertaining and enjoyable. And that's why I like to go to their meetings.
And I just find it invigorating that I find other people who I enjoy because they have worked on and become the best people they could be. And those are joyous people to be around.
Satisfying, yeah. Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it, but I enjoy it. I feel like I fit in. And even though, sometimes I sit in those meetings and my head is spinning by the time I walk out of it, but I enjoy them every month when we go in there. I walk away with something to think about. One of our members, Ivan, actually, made a statement about there's nothing outside of this world. And it was something about the way he said it, and I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he said that there's just nothing there, and that when we're gone, there's nothing. And I remember when he said that, my head kind of spun a little bit, and I felt a little shaky for a second, and then I sort of pulled it together, and I thought, yeah, okay, all right. But it was even in that moment, and this is now a year into my having been a member, because it was just, I think it was last fall maybe, yeah, it shook me. It shook me for a second to realize that. And when I walked out, what I was actually thinking about was, that's why when I tell people about what I believe, that's what happens to them. That's why it's uncomfortable to someone who believes in God and afterlife and heaven and angels and spirits and ghosts, to think that this is it.
I mean, in Red Bank Humanists, we have many different kinds of people. We have former Christians, we have former Jewish people. Well, they're still Jewish, but it's more cultural Jewish as opposed to observant religious Jewish. We have people who come from families that have been atheist for several generations. And for me, that's new. I had never met anyone like that before, but that's been a very pleasant surprise to meet people who have lived as atheists for many years. It feels like something it feels like I've always thought this way, but I just didn't know it for a long time. So it is satisfying. And also I like the camaraderie and the social networking that comes with the group. It's very satisfying to meet others who think the way that you do and who are happy being that way. It's generally a very educated group of people and very well-read group of people, which I like because that challenges me to be around folks who read a lot and who participate in the world and care about world events.